A very warm welcome back to the channel, everybody. Thanks for joining me today here. I'm going to be taking a look at a painting I've not actually finished yet. So this is the painting in question, and I want to be able to show you, I'm going to be step back in time and have a look how I actually sketched this out, and also the painting process. You're not actually going to see me painting as such because it's going to be so boring if you watch that, but I'll be talking you through how I do certain things, why I do certain things, and hopefully the end result as well. So I've not finished this painting yet, but you can get a good idea what it's going to come out like. So stick with me. I'm going to try and be clever and edit this video so I can show you some progress on this painting and do a little bit of narrative over it as well. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it will go okay. If it doesn't, you won't see this video anyway. Before we go on to that, could I just ask you to give it a thumbs up if you like the channel? Please consider subscribing. It doesn't cost anything, and it really does make a big difference. I'm giving this channel a year, so I've got until about July. Then I'm going to review it and see how we get on. If I don't think it's worth continuing the channel, we'll just have a year's worth of videos to look at and a nice back catalogue. But so we're just going to see how we get on with it, basically. It is a niche market, and I know it's not very exciting for a lot of people, but hopefully somebody might find something useful that they like. So on we go with the video. So 9 times out of 10, what I'll actually do with the design, I draw it straight onto the canvas. Sometimes I will draw it out on paper first of all, but that's usually only perhaps if it's a commission or something I really need to get it exactly how somebody wants. So in this case, I've just got myself a ruler, a couple of things to draw around, and just actually built up the design as I've gone along. So I think I've started off with the straight lines first of all, and then added in the circles and the diagonals and just built the design up from there. And the paints I'm going to be using on this particular painting are my usual Daler-Rowney System 3. Got a couple of bigger tubs, and I wanted also Prussian blue, which you'll see I've used a lot on the kind of the watery effect where I've diluted it quite a lot. So yeah, that's what we're using. This is how I've used the Prussian blue. So on the sides I've used it a lot. So I'll introduce a lot of wet, just ordinary water onto the canvas surface. Then I will add the blue onto that and just let it dilute, just let it drizzle down the edges until I get this really nice effect. I think it works quite well. So here you can see how I actually masked up an area to be painted. I said I do this for several reasons really. It's very quick to do, but the main reason is I want really sharp edges on this. I really struggle to get that with a brush these days. I'm afraid the old hand isn't as steady as it used to be. So it allows me to get nice crisp edges and also build up a bit of texture. I can do this several times over and layer on the paint as well using the natural sponge. And it's just something that works really, really well on this kind of painting. So this is an area of the painting I didn't want to be too precise. So what I've done, I've actually let certain bits of the paint overlap into the next one. So we've got bits of yellow into the blue, and you can see the red I followed a slight watermark of the blue and just let that run along. So it creates a little divide there. It just makes the whole thing a bit softer. So this area is going to present a bit more of a challenge in that I'm not going to be able to do this with masking tape on the edges. I'm going to have to draw this freehand and paint freehand. Not really too worried about it. It's just take a bit of time, a steady hand with a good brush, and just take my time and make sure we do a nice smooth job of it without going over the edges. So this is where we are at the moment with the painting. So obviously it's come on a lot since the photos that I just showed you. Some people might say, oh, it's more or less finished. I'd say there's still quite a bit to do on it. So what's happened is when I've done some of the filling in, like this area, for example, I've actually lost some of the lines, some of the design lines that kind of go through it. I'm not really too bothered about that really, because what I'll do, I can actually put those back in. And that's something you'll find when you're doing paintings, especially with acrylic, in that because the coverage is like, it can be 100%, you can go over lines and lose definition and lose the actual like grid lines, design lines, whatever it is. As long as you've got the original, I usually take photos when I first start off, so I can actually go back and look at how I painted, how I drew out the design in the first place and put those lines back in. So obviously I'm probably going to put those lines maybe in white. I still want those lines kind of separated through that black there. So I can just go back in and just kind of put those back. Doesn't really bother me too much, that's absolutely fine. Other areas I've got to work on is the circles here. and up here, this one is probably going to be more of a challenge because, again, I want fairly even coverage. Now, obviously, with this area in straight lines, what I will tend to do is mask off the edges and infill it using a sponge. Don't always do it, but I do that for a couple of reasons. That I get nice coverage of the area. I can build it up. It is quite quick to do that as well. And the other reason is, years ago, I probably would have done that with a brush going around these edges. You really need to be quite precise when you do that. And if you do go over that line into the adjacent area, you're kind of screwed basically, because you can't take back that paint off, especially with acrylic. It's very, very difficult to lift paint back off of an area where you didn't want it. So parts of this painting, I've deliberately kind of gone over the lines. Say, for example, here, it is kind of over the actual outline here. And I'm not really too bothered about that because that's how I wanted it to be. But on other areas like round here, I actually want that to be more precise. And these areas around the circles, really, I want those to be more precise. I don't want to lose the definition of the circles. So it's going to be quite difficult to do. Obviously, I can't mask off a circle. So that's another little problem that we're facing there. I'm not really too worried about it. It's just going to take time and a bit of patience to do it. The other thing I want to do with this painting is these black areas here, especially this one here. I'm actually going to do what I call reverse painting. So it's obviously the canvas underneath is white. I've painted it black. I want white showing through that again. So you could argue that and say, well, instead of, why didn't you just leave some area white when you did it? You could do, but I want to be more defined on that. I want to more control on the areas that are left white. So what I'm going to do is I've infilled it with black. I'm going to apply white using this sponge so I can be more precise and dictate which areas I want the white to go on. So I kind of call that reverse painting. Probably people hear me say that, they haven't got a clue what I'm on about. But basically, I'm kind of taking it back to the colour it was underneath the paint. So that's why I call it kind of reverse painting. The rest of it is going to be a case of just making sure the colours don't clash. So I'm perilously close to having a lot of colours that are next to each other. Now with this, as I've said before, it's a bit kind of mathematical. So I don't want two yellows, I don't want two reds, I don't want the colours clashing. So for example here, I'm almost going to be running out of colours to infill that with. It might actually have to be a black that. I could do it as a red. Obviously I can't do it as a yellow, can't do it as a blue. So your choices are fairly limited, and that's something I don't really worry about too much when I'm drawing out a design. Otherwise you get so hung up on what's going to meet what, you just wouldn't get anywhere. If the design is really, really simple, not like this, if it's a really simple design, I will actually go through the areas and mark out which colour is going to go in which area. I just write on in pencil, so I kind of got it fresh in my mind and I don't lose it. Something like this, which is a bit more complex, I'll probably just do it as I go along. It's just the way it goes, really. It's more of a challenge, but I don't mind that, and you can muck around with the colours. Haven't got that many colours to work with. Say I've probably got about 4 or 5 colours that I'm working with here. The sides on this were quite interesting in that, if I can show you some of these edges here, if they're going to show up, and I used a kind of a brown on these edges. It's not a colour I use that often, but it gives it quite a nice depth. And I've used that just to kind of break the actual design up on the front. Otherwise, it was going to look a bit kind of one-dimensional. And I wanted something to give it a bit of definition, just to kind of make it stand out a little bit. So I've done that. Nearly come a cropper on this edge here, because what I'd already done, I'd kind of started to paint this with a bit of blue. So you can see that edge is blue there. Blue and brown, not the most fantastic colours to work with when you come to mixing. And I use a slightly different brown. So if you can look on that, I nearly come a cropper. It's quite a bit of a dark patch there. Whereas on this side, I used a slightly different brown and didn't actually have that dark patch. Brown is a colour I don't really like that much. I use it in certain paintings. It just doesn't kind of go well. I usually use 3 different colours. I use like a burnt umber, a sienna, and I'll go through to an orange and a red, which is fine. But I don't know what it is. Me and those combination of colours, on that side it's worked really, really well. It's absolutely fine. On the underside, not so much. But I think it's just the way I've mixed it. And to be honest, I think it's the way I've decided to slightly change the gradient on this, a transition from one colour to another. I've got a lot of blue on this, you see, that's what kind of mucked me up. I did put a bit of yellow in that to try and ease the transition, whereas you can see there's a lot of yellow on that side, so it's quite a nice combination. It eases quite well. On this one, because I had the blue already there, I'm overlaying with yellow, and it's not a great combination, so that's why I've got this darker patch there. But as with all paintings, you just kind of live with it. There's no point worrying about something that you think has spoiled it, because 9 times out of 10 people don't even notice anyway. So you just kind of go with it. And that's the thing with painting. Don't get hung up on something if it doesn't go exactly to plan. You just kind of work with what you've got, and you'll learn more like that. You know, it's like anything. It's like baking a cake kind of thing. You might shove a bit more sugar in it, on a couple of extra cherries or fruit or something. Might come out fine. But you live and learn, and I mean, you never stop learning, and that's the thing. So there we are with this painting. I will put, won't be in this video because I'm still a bit away off finishing it, but I wanted to show you how far I've got with it. Now, as I might have said in a couple of posts, this painting, or the actual canvas, was gifted to me by a very, very nice lady, a friend of mine. And so it was kind of unexpected. It's not a shape I would naturally paint, actually, but I do like it a lot. And it's kind of kicking me off on a little journey, really, which I'm enjoying quite a lot. And I think there's lots of different aspects to this painting that hopefully people will enjoy. So there we go. That's where we are with it at the moment. How long have I been painting this? I'm probably 4 weeks in, something like that. Painting sessions, I don't tend to do long painting sessions, might be an hour, 2 hours at a time. So painting time on this one, I think I'm probably something like about, I'm going to say somewhere between 8 and 10 hours, somewhere in that region. But a lot of that time will be preparation, mixing, and actually stuff like that. So yeah, so we go. Really nice canvas this. I like the texture to it. I like the depth to it as well. So I think it's got a lot going for it. And you know when it's a good painting when when you read a book and you really enjoying the book and you don't want to get to the end of it, so you're kind of enjoying the journey, you like the characters and everything. You've got to know everybody. You're familiar with it. Same kind of thing with the painting, really, and this one falls into the same category, in that you kind of get so far and you're happy with it, and you're watching it evolve. You haven't got to worry about it too much because it's kind of flowing quite nicely. You've got all the paints that you want, and you're just enjoying the experience. And that's what's happening with this one. I'm taking my time with it. It's not a race. I'm just kind of seeing how it works out, incorporating the bits that I want to incorporate into it. And it's kind of taking quite a nice shape, and it's looking like I want it to look like. Not incredibly colourful as regards colour. I mean, I've got like the 4 or 5 colours in there. It will be a bit more complex by the time I finished it, because what I want to do is put some additional lines in. So although I've got my kind of grid lines here and the colours to fill up the spaces, I am actually going to put a lot more extensions on this, and those extensions will kind of be graduated in colour basically as they go along. It's something I've used on other paintings, and I'm probably going to use it again. So where I've got like a line here that perhaps might end somewhere, I'll extend it along through the painting so it just goes off perhaps around the edge. An example could be that it could actually go around the edge there a little bit more, just to make it a bit more interesting and kind of just encapsulates the whole thing, really. So we'll see how we get on, but that's my plan. I think I'm going to use more white on this. My worry on this is I've got to be really careful I don't make it dark, because I've got black, I've got brown. I want to keep it a light painting, and so hopefully that'll do the trick. So there we go. So that's how it is at the moment. So if you enjoyed having a look at that, thanks a lot for your time. Hopefully I've not made a complete mess of the stills that you'd have seen earlier. I'll try and do a good narration on that. I'm shooting this all back to front. But thanks a lot for your time. And hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Give it a thumbs up. Drop any comments that you want. It's always nice to hear from you. And I'll see you very soon. You take care now. Bye-bye.